So we'll get down here and try and get the crank pulley off. It's actually the harmonic balancer as well, I believe. They should be M6 internal hex, but they're pretty crusty. Where's my hammer? So take your time to make sure they're cleaned out and that the bit is bottomed all the way, or you will risk twisting the head. That's gonna be a good time too. You'll risk twisting the head or twisting the bit inside the head, and then you'll never get it undone, and you can't get vice grips or anything on them. I don't really want to have to use a puller on this, but I'm sure it's not going to be nice. This timing cover won't take any prying. Well, I'll muck around with that and we'll come back when it's off. So I did get it popped loose here finally. What I ended up doing is just hooking the pry bar behind the edge and then putting a block of wood between the bar and the oil pan so that it didn't mangle the lower shield there. And then did a little bit, turned it a half a turn, did a little bit, did that a few times. And then you kind of center it and balance it, and then you can wiggle it and it'll come off. That way you don't do any damage to the aluminum pulley. The whole thing's aluminum, I think, with a steel balancing chunk in the center. Without damaging the pulley fins and without deforming or messing up the balance of the harmonic balancer. So I'm going to set that out of the way and the bolts that go with it as well. And then now we have, I think there's 5 of those cap screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, that hold the lower timing cover on. And they should be 10mm head. And then if we go up top here for a second, there's one right in the top in the center there, and then one down there, and one in the same place on the other side, and that makes 5. And then there's just kind of some friction clips that go onto the what's left of the upper timing, backside timing cover there, and that should let us take the whole lower timing cover off. So we'll do that here quick. Should be a piece of cake. Should slip right off. And then now we've got full access. I'll put these back in the holes for now. Full access to the timing belt itself. Somebody before tried to paint mark all of the pulleys and do a belt that way, which does not work. I mean, you can do it, but to do it properly, you need to reset the cam valve timing and the injection pump timing every time you do it. So yes, you can just mark the belt and the pulleys in 3 places for each of them, and put the new belt on that way, and it'll be close, maybe. But to do it properly and have appropriate, best efficiency, best power, best performance, you need to adjust everything every time, which we will go through in a bit. So next step is to use our crankshaft holding tool with those bolts from the harmonic balancer to fasten to the crank so that we can put it against the frame, and then use a big bar to try and get that crank bolt loose. So that's the next step. So we're now going to try to get the crank bolt cracked loose and then just snug back up so we can still turn the engine, but so that it can be easily undone later without turning the crankshaft when we get the timing belt off. So I've got our homemade tool here to match what well, maybe not to match, but to replace what the Volkswagen service tool would do to help you hold the crankshaft. So I'm gonna buzz through putting that on and then try and figure out how to hold it and use a pry bar or a Johnson bar probably to try and get the bolt to crack loose. Probably gonna be quite the struggle, but don't have much other choice at this point, so let's get at it. The crank hold tool on there, and I've got the end of it just chained to the control arm. So we're gonna try it and see what happens. Probably nothing good, but we'll see here. And we're losing the battery on the light now. It's just fantastic. Anyway, let's try this first. Might work, it might not. Okay, let's see what happens here. Can we dump the engine off? Oh my goodness, that's a lot. That is a lot. There she goes. Oh goodness. Ow, 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 ow. Okay, there we go. I don't know why the impact guns couldn't do that, because it wasn't that bad. Anyway. So, get off there. We'll just snug this back up now. And an impact gun should be able to undo it later, no problem, without moving the crankshaft. So now can I get my chain undone maybe? There we go. Get off of there. Oh, stupid. Unreal. Get. Oh. Alright. So I'll just take that crank tool off now, and then we can actually start on the timing belt removal procedure. Alright, so I'm just going to follow the procedure in the Bentley service manual here. I'm not going to do anything crazy. I am known for not following the rules when I don't like them. Not the rules, the instructions, I guess you would say. But anyways, I'm going to follow the book unless there's something that I know is not correct or I've already done. So, covers are off, V-belts or serpentine belts off. Remove brake booster vacuum pump from end of cylinder head. So that is this guy here that I messed around with when I did the rear main seal and all that clutch fun. So we'll get that out of the way now here. Probably get the vacuum diaphragm out of the way first. That should be 8. And then we've got so I don't know how well this is going to be able to see. You can see one of them there, that nut, and there's one on the back side, same place. They hold the brackets for those plastic clips for the vacuum line to the vacuum reservoir there. So you got to get those nuts off first, and then you can put a socket over the other 2 actual bolts that hold the vacuum pump to the cylinder head. So I believe the nuts are 10 millimeter. And I did have some right here. 10 millimeter. You can only get a socket on the one. The other one you have to use a wrench, which makes it slow and painful too. Unless you want to mess around with the coolant heaters, which I would not recommend. So we can take this back one off pretty quick. And I had all these apart, maybe recently, so they're all anti-seized and everything should come apart beautifully. Alright, and that drive, which is right off of the camshaft, the slot at the end of the camshaft, which the camera can't see at the moment, there's a slot that drives that. That is the slot that we put the special tool in and the feeler gauges on either side to set valve timing, which we'll talk about when we get to that point. Okay, so vacuum pump, leaky as heck, even though I put a new O-ring seal on that when I did the, oh that's nice, when I did the transmission job, because I knew that it was leaking at that point, and obviously it is still leaking, which is fantastic, and I'm continuing to get anti-seize in more and more places here. That shop towel needs to leave. We end up with it everywhere. Okay, so next thing on the list then. Okay, so let's get the valve cover off. And then after that, we're gonna get the timing marks lined up. Okay, so these ones only have 6, and in this case, they're bolts, cap screws, instead of the Mark IIs, which have 8 nuts and studs on the head, which makes it harder to clean the head. So this is nicer in some fashion. And where's the air? Because once again, with internal hex, and the fact that we're opening up the engine, we gotta make sure that the heads are all clean. There is actually an odd number, which makes also no sense. There's 3 cap screws across the front and 4 cap screws across the back, just to mess with your head in case it wasn't enough already. And those should also be M6, I would think. Or maybe even 5. Yep, 5. Okay. Lots of grease in that one. M5, internal X. Here we got ratchet, and we got extension here. And the biggest thing with these valve covers is I think there is a gasket on the valve cover, but you can't replace it. It's part of the cover. And I think even if you put a new valve cover on, which would come with supposedly a new gasket, it'll still leak. So we always put a bead of RTV around the perimeter of the valve cover, which I will show and do later on when we're putting it back together, so that you don't get, not that it's a bad thing as far as keeping the engine from rusting badly, especially in the salt areas, but keeps the oil from leaking and running down the engine and making a mess. So I can see a gap already. I don't know if it's gonna just come off for me nicely or not. There we go. Ta-da! And I think that baffle is not supposed to stay with the valve cover, but that's fine. So, looks beautiful inside, as it should. Don't see anything that is concerning. So in order to do the timing belt job, that bearing cap has to come off to be able to put the tool we made in. If you have the Volkswagen special tool, it looks like a W. So it's got the slot in the middle for the shaft and 2 fingers on either side, and that's where you put your feeler gauges. Something happened though when my dad first started with these ones, where they realized that the Mark II tool worked way better, and the only difference is you have to take the cap off. So what? You have to take the other bearing cap off anyways to replace the camshaft seal. Lots of people probably don't do the camshaft seal, but I don't want oil running down the end of the engine and soaking the brand new belt in oil. And I got to take all of the caps off anyways, because we're going to swap camshafts here. Okay, so valve cover is off. What's the next thing they want us to do? So what it's going to come down to is the crankshaft can be top dead center, cylinder number 1, 2 different times, because we have a 4-stroke engine, not a 2-stroke, right? So we can have this number 1 cylinder or number 1 piston at the top on compression, or at the top on exhaust. And I think what it'll come down to is the pin, the timing pin for the injection pump sprocket will only fit in at one of those 2 places. So if we line it up, and we'll show the timing mark here in a second, if we line it up on the flywheel and the pin is not lined up, the hole's not lined up for the pin, then we know we got to go another turn. The camshaft slot should be lined up. It's going to be lined up twice as often. Every half crankshaft turn, it should be lined up, I think. So either way, no matter which one we're on, the camshaft should be okay, but the injection pump may not be. So let's mess around with that a bit. I will show the joy of trying to see. Can't even see it with that. Trying to see the timing marks. Okay, let's go 2 times. Gotta love that pulsing LED light. So in that timing check cover there, you see the ring gear, and at the top of the hole there's a little arrow pointing down. Pretty pretty hard to see with this, but there's an arrow pointing down, and that arrow will line up with a notch in the flywheel. So the biggest problem doing this by yourself is you got to be at the front of the engine to turn the engine, and then somehow see when the timing mark is coming up. So I'm going to mess around with that now and see if I can get it at least visible. So I will maybe try instead to line up the injection pump. Injection pump pin instead, and that should get us pretty close. But we're gonna find out here. It's always a good idea, especially when you're setting the timing, but in general too, to only turn the engine in the direction. Let me get the socket on now. Only turn the engine in the direction that it would rotate when operating. So usually clockwise viewed from the front. Oh, look at that! I can fit it on there. Good. Okay. So. Come on. You can hear compression bleeding off, so at least it has compression. It wouldn't run if it didn't. And it would be a royal pain to start, especially in the cold. I have no idea where the pin actually is supposed to go through, but we're going to try and find that point here. Yes, I could actually have. That's not going to stay, of course. That would just be far too easy for it to just sit there. Let's change this so that, although you can't see what I'm doing, I'm working down here at the injection pump, trying to line up, and somewhere here I've got the injection pump timing pin tool. A bazillion other things. So I don't know if this, I don't think this is the actual VW tool. It's probably one that we made as well, but it's just a pin. It's got to be at least, we made a mark here. That's how far in it has to go. If it's not up to that mark, you're not in all the way. And this keeps the injection pump shaft in the right place in order to do our timing, the hub, which is attached to the shaft. It's nice on these ones, you don't have to loosen the hub from the shaft. The main nut that holds that stays all the time. And instead, you you loosen the bolts that hold the sprocket to the hub, and there's slots in them to be able to do the adjustment later on. I have no idea where it needs to line up with. I guess it would be a good time to check if we have anything over here. No. Of course, it's a tiny little hole. I think the Mark IIs have a bigger inspection hole so that you can tell where the heck you're going. We don't know where we're trying to go here. Oh, there it is. Now we can see. Okay, so that's in the ballpark. I went too far to put the pin in, but we should have something showing over here now. Yeah, look at that. So, I don't know if I can show this now. Alright. And I don't know, can I zoom? not gonna be able to hold it still enough here now. But right there, you can kind of see off the point of the arrow, it's actually a little bit to the left from this view, is the groove cut in the flywheel. That is our timing mark. Let's go back to, okay. So, I had it correct as far as the position goes. I just went a little bit too far on the injection pump here to get the pin in. So what I'm going to do is I am going to back up, but I'm going to go far enough back that all of the slack can be removed going forward again. Because that's the biggest thing, is there is slack, even though it's, you know, a precision system with timing belt and everything. You can still have slop. You can move the crankshaft and the camshaft doesn't move, or vice versa. So this time I'm going to try to get pump timing pin in. Okay, so try a little bit of dicking around. We've got, actually that actually works a little better. I just want to sit here now. Okay, we got the injection pump timing pin in. So that's the pin there, inserted basically up to the mark at the sprocket. And the idea is you should still be able to turn it fairly freely. If it's bound, then it's not in the right place. So I'm happy with that. It's in all the way. And then let's see, how do we do on the timing mark here? So, I don't know if this is going to be able to see it. But the timing mark is probably a 1/4 inch past. So our timing isn't exact, which is, you know, probably to be expected with a little bit of belt stretch. Looking at the camshaft, it looks like it's at least in the right position. And once we get that bearing cap off, then we can see if the tool will even fit in. If the tool won't fit in, then that's why there's so much difference between the injection pump, for example, and the crankshaft. The belt has stretched, or somebody just set it wrong the last time around, 157,000 kilometers ago.